Joining me tonight, radio talk show host Dom Giordana and Washington Times columnist, Fox business contributor Tammy Bruce. Great to have you both here. Let's start, if we may, with the president and what it is. He seems to be about to seize a tremendous and almost unthinkable success just a few weeks ago, and that is tax reform. Tammy, this is a very big deal because it could mark a shift, and a long-lasting shift in American politics. Your thoughts?
Yes, and it's not just because of the nature of the issue itself. It's the fact that everyone except him and his team wanted him to fail, worked for him to fail.
And still do.
The establishment, the media, that this was the fight. It's now been 9 months, right? And maybe the baby of...
To the day, as they say.
The baby of a new America, perhaps, is emerging because the biggest, I think, accomplishment, even with all the details of what he's done with regulations and the executive orders and...
Cutting regulations.
Cutting regulations and reversing the damage that Obama's done, is the fact that he hasn't stopped. He faced it down, and he won.
It is a big moment for the president, almost within his grasp, Don. Your thoughts?
Absolutely, Lou, and it's going to be very hard for Democrats to explain why they would get this. This is middle-class tax relief. This is the economy booming, and people like Lou Dobbs have talked about this for years. And this, Lou, I think, is a good moment for President Trump because he's lived inside this. He knows this stuff. He seems to me to be very engaged and very detail-oriented, and he sees the significance. If this rolls through, then maybe the McConnells and Ryans of the world are pushed back on other issues also.
Yes, and I think it's clear that the majority leader, Mitch McConnell, has come on board, if you will, with the president, working hard here to deliver a success in the Senate, and doing so side by side, if you will, shoulder to shoulder with the president. Those images from the White House at the invitation of the president to the majority leader, the two men standing there, was an image that prophesized the direction of this legislation and hopefully for tax reform as well as the budget. I want to turn also to the idea that two former presidents, Tammy, would come out and, without naming him, attack this president. Two presidents who, by the way, in my judgment, represent, frankly, awful leadership and awful consequences, and one a Republican and one a Democrat.
Look, it has been, for me, heartbreaking. I like President George W. Bush. He remained silent through the Obama years with the argument that we accepted that it's
well, the country was going to hell in a handbasket.
Well, exactly, but it was the principle that you do as an ex-president. And now that you've got remarkable economic turnaround, the president who oversaw an economic crash, condemning the president, this president.
The greatest economic collapse since the Great Depression.
Yeah. Talking about casual cruelty. The casual cruelty is not recognizing or being too obsessed about amnesty to recognize when your own economic collapse is going to happen. Casual cruelty is setting up a war that you leave and you do not finish and is the longest lasting war in American history. Casual cruelty is unlocking the door for Barack Obama to move forward with things like Obamacare, nationalized health care. That's casual cruelty. President Bush should say nothing from this point forward about cruelty or about this nation and how she's doing. He's not in a position to.
Don?
Lou, I could not find one caller, even though I gave full carte blanche, you go to the top of the line today, that would defend George W. Bush and this push, because my listeners know, and I hope viewers know, this is not just about President Trump. What he's saying is this is deplorables, too. If you support Trump and we're pushing and continue to push, you're a nativist all of a sudden. One of the worst categorizations that you can make. And on the immigration issue, Jeb and George Bush have so tarnished themselves. We're talking about legal immigration. Dominic Joseph Giordano, I think I support things like that. This president really, really disappointed yesterday.
The idea that these two men, with all of their failings, and President Obama, who worked for 8 years against the interest of the nation, who culminated what was a disastrous presidency. History will regard him very poorly. with a $150 billion check to the Iranians, the largest state sponsors of terrorism in the world, and putting within their reach a nuclear weapon. It was madness. It is madness with which this president must contend, and both of those presidents deferring and confronting North Korea and its nuclear ambitions, leaving that also to this president, a man who is, by the way, equal to the challenge.